What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Bad's Catholic Dad podcast. I'm one of your hosts, John Perez, alongside Father of the Year himself, Derek Rogers. How's it going, Derek?
Great. I'm so happy. Thank you for the award. I'm going to post that on my wall. It's
Derek,
going to look great on my resume.
Oh my gosh. Derek, happy Father's Day, man.
Same to you, John. Same to you on this. We're actually recording on Father's Day.
We are recording on Father's Day. A little backstory for the listeners. We tried to record yesterday, and Derek was like, I'm going to go away for a second. I got to make sure my son is good. Both our wives were gone for the morning, and we were like, let's record so we can get this on Monday. And I think you went away for a couple seconds. I was on my phone. We were literally about to record. You came back, and then I just heard like a little poof or something like that. And it turns out my mixer or something with my equipment broke or something like that, because recording after that was not good. And man, so I'm actually recording on, if you know, like a call center, like what they talk on, those little headset mics. I'm recording on one of those right now because I can't find any of my like gaming headsets or anything like that. So if the quality of this podcast is not up to Bad Catholic Dad standards, and that's not saying that much in my opinion, we apologize for that one. So
yeah, it's like, wow, they're really taking step backs, man. That technology is fading. They're really struggling over at BCD right now.
Yeah, hey, we're struggling at BC. Go to patreon.com/badcatholicdads. Help us out. Derek, how's your Father's Day going? Let's kind of recap. How's your day going, man?
It's been going really well. We kicked it off with Mass this morning. And then we went right to Krispy Kreme donuts.
Oh, of course. Rogers family tradition.
Oh, my goodness. They were nice and warm. And then today I actually did a lot of stuff outside because we're still getting ready for this baby. This baby is, I don't know. It's just driving me crazy, man.
No baby, huh?
None. And so I was just doing stuff on the yard. I want to, first impressions are really important. So I want to make sure the house is looking good. I don't want him to come here thinking we're slobs, or he or she.
Yeah.
So did that. And then we went to not Buffalo Wild Wings. We went to Wingstop.
Oh, good choice. Better choice.
Because we were trying to get spicy food to help Bethany out. So we went with the atomic wings. And, dude, I suffered after that. It was too much richness this whole day. Like
Suffered in terms of, like, your stomach?
Yeah, it affected me more than Bethany.
Yeah.
I was hoping she was going to have a kid because of how spicy it was. It felt like I was having a kid, man. It was terrible. It was absolutely awful.
Oh, my gosh.
It was a great day, so we just played for the rest of the time outside and stuff like that. But it was a good dinner, and things were good.
Cool.
Gifts, dude. Bethany, first of all, they gave me a book. So I got the Michael Crichton book called Dragon Teeth. It's like they found it was like an old one that he didn't release. It's about paleontologists in the 1800s.
Oh, hey, that's Derek with the dinosaurs. Love it.
And dude, I got like Bethany. It didn't come in. It's supposed to come in shortly. She's like, here's a picture of it on the phone. And because I have the Game of Thrones shot glasses, she got me the Harry Potter houses shot glasses.
Oh, very nice.
And they don't sell them because they don't want to. So it has to be handcrafted. So they're handcrafted ones. Like, I was really excited to see that. So it's been a good Father's Day. What about for you, John? How's the day?
It was good. It was good. My parents came up for the weekend, for Saturday or yesterday and today. So it's kind of been like just kind of hanging out with my family. They just wanted to come up to see the kids, as grandparents do. You know how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And so today is so funny. Today we woke up really early because we were gonna go to early mass. Like, I think, like, not as early as you get up for mass, like 8 o'clock mass, which is pretty early for us on Sundays. We usually go to like 11 a.m. mass, because my parents wanted to hit the road early.
Okay.
And so it was like 9 o'clock. So we couldn't make it to the 8 a.m. mass because we're taking forever and we have kids and everything, and we had to eat breakfast. And we were on our way to the 9 a.m. mass at a different church near us, and we were already running late. And so I think my wife or my mom had been wanting to go to Franciscan monastery in Washington, D.C.
Oh, I saw the pictures. That looked awesome.
Yeah. And so we were like, "Do you guys want to go?" And we were like, "All right, let's go." So we ended up going there, and it was great, man. Like, it was such a good place to be, just to be there on Father's Day, but also kind of reflect on because if you haven't been, for those who aren't from the Washington D.C. area, you've been, Derek, I'm sure.
I don't actually think I have. When I was looking at the pictures, I thought I had been, but it didn't look familiar.
Yeah, basically, if you haven't been, or if you're not from the DC area and you haven't been, it's it's a it's a replica. A lot of it is a replica of the Holy Land. So like you go in the church, and they have the tomb of Jesus like way in the back. And it looks exactly like the church of the tomb of
Wow.
where Jesus was laid down. In another part of the church, they have where they have a replica uh, of where they have a replica of where the angel visited Mary to tell her that she was going to have the Son of God, right? Like, so it's like it's really cool because
Yeah.
it was made for those who can't go to the Holy Land, which is really cool. And so my mom has never been before, and so she really wanted to go, and so she was so happy being there. But for me, it was special because after Mass, little bit before Mass, James was fussing a little bit, and I took him up, and I went to one of the side chapels, and one of the side chapels is the life of Saint Joseph, and so it was like perfect for
that's
Father's
ideal.
Day, right? Like,
ideal.
Yeah, so like in the back they have a huge statue of Joseph, and then on the sides they have the wedding of Mary and Joseph, and then on the other side of that they have when Joseph and Mary were on their way to Egypt with the child Jesus, and then to the left of that they had a awesome statue painting of the death of Saint Joseph when Jesus and Mary were at his deathbed. So it was really cool reflection. I got to pray there for a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then they left. My parents left, and we met up with the in-laws and went to this Cajun restaurant. But as you know, I don't like seafood as much, and so I ordered chicken wings. So I got wings for my birthday or for Father's Day.
Not even shrimp. Not even shrimp.
Not. You know what's funny? I'm allergic to. This year I found out I'm allergic to crab and shrimp now. And lobster.
Oh.
So like when I eat it, my mouth gets all tingly and.
I mean, I guess that's really good swollen. Because if you already didn't enjoy it, like I mean, heck, pile up the allergic reactions on things you don't like. Though. That's ideal.
I like crab, especially crab cakes. I love ordering crab cakes, but every time I have it, it's not good. It's not good.
I think I've had the crab cakes. Not a big fan. I mean, just the name gives me shivers.
That's true. That is true. It's just I like cakes. It though. Yeah. I like it in a sandwich. It's nice. It's nice. So yeah, then we came back here. We kind of hung out the rest of the afternoon. I went to Guitar Center trying to figure out the mixer situation, and I didn't want to settle for anything. And then everything I wanted, they didn't have in stock, and everything I could have gotten didn't have what I needed. So. This is what you'll have to deal with, listeners, for just like an episode, maybe. So we'll see.
Yeah, because it's either this or nothing at all. So
it's either this or nothing.
I'm glad that this is what we have. This is great.
Yes, sure, of course. Like I remember, I listened to other podcasts, and one of the things they say is like try not to miss an episode, because, I joke around like missing episodes like the death of a podcast, the slow death of a podcast. But it really isn't. But at the same time, it's like I want to give something to the listeners. Especially for Father's Day, right? Like this is like the one day we get to celebrate being a bad Catholic dad, right?
Yep.
And then if you miss an episode, your listeners will be expecting it. Like we always say, hey, every Monday 9 a.m. rain or shine, right? And so like if they expect it, then they'll expect it, and also if they don't get it, then they'll also be like, oh, is it coming Tuesday? Are they skipping the week? And so. This is better than nothing, hopefully.
Yeah,
we'll see.
And again, it fits right in with the name. If we're a little bit late, we're not perfect Catholic dads. We're not perfect podcasters either. So, hey,
no, not at all. Not at all.
We're making it work. The show must go on. So, yeah.
Yes, the show must go on. All right, so Derek, let's get right into it. Episode number 14. This is the Bad Catholic Dads podcast. This episode will probably called Happy Father's Day. If you guys know us, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Follow us on the iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play. All that at the end of the show. Anyway, I wanted to start this podcast out with kind of favorite memories growing up with our dads. I got to see my dad this year, which was really cool, and I got to say Happy Father's Day to him, and him growing into now being a grandfather. That's one of my favorite memories now that I'll have, him being a grandfather now. But just even going back to our childhood, what are some of your favorite memories growing up with your dad, Derek?
Oh man.
You made your mom cry. on Mother's Day, Derek. Now time to make your dad cry.
See, I don't know if my dad. Well, actually, they listened to the podcast on when they were driving Florida, so that was good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, my dad's not a big crier. I mean, unless he's watching his favorite movies like Gone in 60 Seconds or Rush Hour or.
Have you ever seen your dad cry?
Yes.
Yeah,
I have.
I have too.
I have.
It's like Superman, taking off his cape for a little bit.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I feel like it's always good when a dad embraces humanity of the moment. I mean, I'm trying to think if my kids have seen me cry. Each birth, man, I'm like crying, but so they don't remember that. They've probably seen me cry. I don't hide it too much, but I don't know. That's a good question. My favorite memories growing up with my dad. Probably. My dad has always been not that really like emotional kind of person, or even
sure, most dads aren't, right?
Yeah, exactly. Carried on from his dad, I would assume. But I mean, right. We had a Boy Scout trip, like when I was in Cub Scouts, that he took me camping for, and it was like my first time really camping with my dad, just him and I, and we were with other Cub Scout, and it was like a weekend kind of thing. And we slept in this, it was a cool tent. It was off the ground. It was like this wooden thing. And I remember specifically falling out of my bed and my dad like helping me up at night. Cause I made that huge clonk noise on the wooden floor, and my dad was able to help me out. I remember that trip really well cause it was a very rare experience for me and my dad, at least one of my earlier memories of him doing something like that with me. Going hunting with him. I never was a big hunter.
That's so cool, dude.
But I wanted to spend time with my dad because he'd come back home with a deer at times. And
your dad was a big hunter, huh?
He loved hunting.
That's so cool.
It was really cool to share in that kind of stuff. He's taken us fishing, so like that kind of outdoorsy stuff has always been. I didn't get to shoot a deer with my dad, but I got to go out and have that memory with him, which is good. One of my favorites. This is probably my top tier. So the runner-up for my favorite memory with my dad is getting to be going through the Knights of Columbus stuff with my dad, which we did it to get a scholarship for college, and we went together through. Are you a knight?
No, I'm not.
Okay. As a knight, I can't talk about like the whole process of initiation, but I will say it's
number one.
It's amazing to go through. And so the first one my dad and I did together, and it was because he's not the biggest Catholic kind of guy. So to have this kind of discussion of what it was afterwards and just being in this very interesting situation, for all those listeners that are Knights of Columbus, I think you understand. So the first one was very interesting. The second one was we did it together as well. I'm trying to remember. But I think it was the final one where I actually had to go into the next degree without my dad. So I made it all the way except for the last final step. But I went the one without my dad because of whatever timing. And my dad had to do it like later on. And so I was already higher up than he was, and I had to be part of this initiation process where I was like one of the people helping with it. And it was the funniest thing. My dad and I laughed so hard about like some of the stuff because seeing my dad go through it, like I give him mad props for going through this because you have to be like game to do this. And I give my dad so much credit. It's definitely one of, I don't know, best like laughter, just heart-filled moments just because of it was awesome to be kind of close to the Catholic faith like this, and seeing my dad completely out of his comfort zone was incredible. And to this day, I wanted to talk with him about like what he remembers of it and just like laugh about that. But my favorite thing all time is my dad teaching me to tie a tie. I know I've spoken on this before.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That was I don't know. That was like the closest I felt with my dad about this, like kind of passing on this, growing up stage. And it's a memory that I'll hold really dear. Because every time I tie my tie, I think of my father. So those are my favorite memories growing up.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. What about for you, John?
Many memories like growing up. Like my dad, very strict dad. He got it a lot from his father. My grandfather was so strict, coming from a military family. And so my dad was just kind of a really, really strict guy. Not as strict, I don't think, as his grandfather or as my grandfather. His dad, but definitely strict guy. Especially growing up as a kid, like it was very like you can tell that my dad was very military because he was in the military himself. But as we got older, you can see kind of like that toughness peeling away a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and so my dad would always kind of one of my favorite memories of my dad would we would always play basketball like in the front yard.
That's awesome.
And like even like there was a point in time where my dad would just whip my ass playing basketball, Derek. Like
Good for him. That's what a dad's got to
like
do, man. You got to
yeah,
stomp out
seriously,
those
you
young
got
bloods.
like as a dad, you like can't go easy on your kids, especially playing sports until like because there'll be one day where your kid will be better than you. And I remember a certain moment like because my dad is the one who kind of taught me how to play basketball.
Okay.
Like when we were in Italy, he built my first basketball hoop that wasn't one of the kid hoops. He built a hoop out of wood, Derek.
Wow.
Like so, but the funny thing is like because we were so little, so he built it like about probably like 8 or 9 feet, 10 feet out of wood, and then he bought like this tiny basketball hoop, like one of the ones you hang over your doors, Derek.
Mm-hmm.
And he nailed it to that wooden basketball hoop. It was so funny.
Wow.
And because I remember that like I was
Yeah.
probably like 5 or 6 years old playing on that little hoop or playing on that small hoop. I mean, it was tall, but it was like the rim was so small. And then Christmas one year he bought us a full size
Sweet.
basketball hoop, and it was like one of the happiest days ever. But yeah, so we would always play basketball. We would always play sports. My dad was a huge golfer, and I remember growing up, I hated golf. I thought it was really boring. I had no patience for it because I was really into basketball, and that's
Mm-hmm.
very high pace, fast pace sport. But then as I grew older, my dad he kept insisting to take us out to play golf. Like anytime we would go, and as I got older, I started going more, and like, dude, I love golf now. It's one of my favorite sports now. And anytime my dad comes up or I go down, we always go golfing. Not recently, but the past couple years we've always gone. Another favorite memory of my dad was I don't know if it's a favorite memory, but it's one of my like it's kind of like your tie memory,
Mm-hmm.
Derek, with your dad. It's kind of those step back moments where you truly appreciate the moment for what it is. It's almost like you're outside of your body and
Yeah.
you can see both of you. Oh, that's not good. My computer is about to die. That's not good at all. Good thing I caught that. Um, One of my favorite memories is when my dad had just gone through surgery. I can't remember what kind of surgery it was, but he had just gone through surgery, and this is like I probably was in high school, end of high school or college or something like that. And my dad would he was like he had just gone through surgery, and I remember him being like on the couch, and he couldn't really move. And I remember it was just me and him alone at our house, at my parents' house, and I remember him. He needed to get something from the kitchen, and I had walked. I was probably playing video games, being not as. I think that's the one thing I regret growing
Yeah.
up is not being present to my dad
Mm.
as much as he probably wanted to be as present to me.
Mm.
But I remember him getting up to go to the kitchen, and he couldn't really get up. Like he was having a hard time getting up. And my first thought was like, "Oh man, this is what like old age looks like." But
Yeah.
then, but then I realized like that was one of those step back moments of being like, "Holy crap!" Like my dad is not young anymore. Like I remember
Yeah.
growing up, my dad kicking my butt in basketball. Running around, playing football, playing tackle football with me and my friends. And now here's this man who has grown a little bit older and is a little bit kind of weaker than he used to,
Mm-hmm.
for a lack of a better word. And I remember just being like, man, like my dad's getting older, I'm getting older, you know. I almost got that
Yeah.
glimpse of like him being really old, and me
Yeah.
being really old. And wanting to appreciate that moment. And I remember going over there and like, "Hey, Dad, you need help?" Like,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't say anything, but I'm pretty sure he kind of like, it was kind of like unspoken, like, "Yeah, help me out, you dumb," you know.
Yeah.
And I remember helping him and just being like, wow, like I have to be more present to my parents.
I mean,
To my
sometimes
dad
that's a really
especially.
good blessing, to have those
Definitely,
moments where
definitely.
you're like, it's kind of like a Christmas Carol, like
Yeah,
where
exactly.
where it's like, oh, I get to live my days over, like the future didn't come to be, so like that's kind of a good gift.
Right, and like he got back to normal, and like
Yeah,
he's still very active today. Like my dad's super healthy. My parent, my both, God bless my parents. They're super healthy. They're pretty young and they're still doing a lot of things. And you know, it's funny. My dad getting back to normal. I remember after that he got back to normal, and I was like, all right, like this is kind of like my sign to like let's be more present. And anytime my parents come up, like like we've talked about this in previous podcasts, like I'm so grateful when they come up,
yeah.
and all we want to do is just hang out. Like do you guys want to go out? If you don't want to go out, that's totally fine. We can just hang out at the house and laugh at James falling over for the fifth time.
You've reminded me of like a couple things. First of
Sure.
all, like because and then I have like the bigger kind of statement at the end of this. My dad, like, he would throw baseball and football around with us, but like he
Yeah.
had two sports that I always remember like looking up to him and admiring him for. One was rugby. He
Oh,
played
sweet.
rugby and I never got into it, and he told us all the horror stories of it. And then the other one, when I was a kid, we got to visit him while he was in like a national curling tournament because we were so close to Canada. You know what curling is, right? Do you know what that is?
Yeah, you try to clean the
Yeah.
ice with your broom
Yes,
to,
and you throw the rock. And I
yeah.
look, we went when I was a kid. My mom took us to see this, and I was like, "What a weird sport! It's like bowling, darts and bowling for some weird reason." But when he took us down to the ice after a game, and he went to show us the rocks that you throw. Oh my gosh! I remember like my respect for my dad went way up. I'm like, dude, this guy won't mess around because it's like lifting a boulder. I mean, they were so
Yeah.
heavy. I was like shocked that I was like, my dad is so super strong.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so like, and the other thing, my dad is like one of those serious guys. Like, you don't want to get on his bad side. He'll rage,
Oh,
And I
yeah.
know that's like being homeschooled. Our foreign language classes were usually with working with my dad outside. We learned like a lot of French and other kind of curse words.
Is your dad from Canada?
No, I'm just
Okay.
I was like, pardon my French, and it's like
Okay.
swearing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
My
Oh, I
dad,
hear what you're saying.
dude,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
my
so funny.
dad cursed so bad.
Yeah.
So you never wanted to get on his bad side. So kind of like along with your story with your dad's, like, you see the humanity in someone when they're like really hurt. Like my dad had to have hernia surgery. Um, he was
That's what it was. It was hernia surgery,
that.
bro.
Oh, dude, so we're like similar with this. So
Yeah.
but see, my dad, like our dad, like he would always call us like idiots because we would try to make him laugh while he had his guts sewed in,
Oh,
and we'd try to
no.
make him laugh all the time. And sometimes we would do it, and he would try to look away, and his stitches would be bleeding because he was laughing, and he was just calling us idiots, and we thought it was hilarious, and he was laughing, so we thought it was too. But I was at work the one time, and no one was around, and he gave me a call because he was on this medication and he was in a lot of pain. I had never been so scared for my dad, like in that moment where I was like, oh my gosh, my dad, who's always like, great with stuff, like he's calling me for help. And I was able to contact my mom. I got to leave work to check on him, but it was just like the medication was messing with him. And it was just, I never heard him sound scared before. And it shook me. Shook me like deeply.
Yeah.
And so the one thing I want to ask you, because hearing you talk, I get to see my dad, what he might have been as a father when we were younger, because when we visit them every now and then, and I get to see my dad playing with my kids, he is an amazing grandfather.
Oh,
Like
yeah. Same
he's
here.
like, so, and now I'm wondering, like, did I just not notice as a kid that he's a great father too? Because like looking at it right now without, because you're not thinking in depth about things when you're a kid and you're spending your time with your dad, and you could look back with regrets like, oh, I should have been spending more time with my dad. But
Oh, yeah.
as a kid, you're stupid. You don't know these things.
Exactly.
But now seeing my dad play, like my dad, and I'd be willing to talk with us about him. My dad, I think, is a better grandfather than he was maybe a dad, so
Yeah.
to speak, because he's so happy with them. He's so calm and he's so patient, and I really admire him for that. Where it's like, that's how I want to be as a grandfather. Like, and I'm really thankful for that. So how's your dad like as a grandfather?
I think the same thing, like you were saying, kind of like sometimes when I watch my dad interact with my kids and like carry my kids, I'm like, is that how he carried me? You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
it's
Is that how
awesome.
he like, you know, rocked me and carried me and stuff like that? And I'm like, man, that's cool. Like that's real
Hmm.
cool. And I think there's a popular saying. It's like grandchildren are parents' second chance at raising kids.
That's
basically.
really interesting.
You know what I mean? It's like all the mistakes that they made with us, they get to, for lack of a better word, not make with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like
it's like a redemption, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's beautiful in a way because it's like a second chance, at being, a parent, quote unquote. It's they're not officially the parent, but they have a huge role in our child's lives.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like when I watch my dad, I'm like, man, he's really good with my kids, and my kids love him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't. My kids are really young, and they might not remember him for a second, like when he comes back, because he lives far. Your dad lives far too.
Yeah.
And but like after a couple hours or like an hour or even a day, like my son will always look at him and like want to be carried by him. You know what I mean? And it's awesome to see. Like how about your dad? Like I'm sure it's the same way.
Yeah, I mean he's just because they call him Pops. His name is Pops. So they go.
Ours is just Grandpa.
It's just Grandpa. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just Grandpa.
And he just like my kids like love him. They go to him and he's like always asking like how they are and he's really sweet with them, and it's really awesome to see that.
It's like you weren't this sweet with me growing up.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's like my recall. Maybe I'm mistaken, and I just feared my dad because like one time I made him really upset when I was a kid, and I'll never forget. He like threw me on the bed, and I was like, dude, I'm not messing with that guy again. That guy means business. And so it's like, and when he do silly things, like if he drank too much at like a party or something like that when we were having family gatherings, it was funny to laugh at some of my stuff my dad did, but in like the real time, in the real moment, like you don't want to mess with dad. So it's really interesting because my father has so many sweet elements to him that I didn't notice as a kid growing up.
Oh, dude, one of my favorite memories being a little bit older with my dad is drinking with my dad. Like,
yeah, that's a good time.
Such an awesome time drinking with my dad, especially like when I remember growing up, like my dad was like, I'm not, he's not addicted to alcohol, but he like when there's a party, he's like, drinking.
Oh yeah, my dad was Mr. Social. Yep.
Yeah, exactly, right. And like I remember one time, like, he took all of us. My mom was like, I think she had like an overnight shift or something like that, and we had to sleep over like my cousin's house because he couldn't drive us home. It was so funny. And I remember at the time, I'm like, why can't we go home? And like, and now it hits me. My dad probably drank way too much. And no, but like when we have parties, it's like I want to drink with my dad. Like my dad's a little bit older now, so he doesn't drink like that anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm like, Dad, come take a shot with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dad, come take this fourth shot.
No, dude, I want to go do it right now. Yeah, no,
dude,
that's.
Yeah, exactly, right. Like it's such an awesome time. But
for this is kind of like pertinent to there's a great picture of my dad, and I've heard this story. I was probably maybe 1 year old or 2 years old, and I guess my mom and dad had this. They always had like these gatherings at the house, like parties. They would play card games and stuff like that. And I guess my dad had a lot to drink that night. And there's this picture my mom took, and it's my dad in. We have this crib upstairs that's been passed on my family, and this very same crib.
Oh no!
It's a big one. My dad climbed into the crib and he just fell asleep with me, like there. So
dude, that takes the cake, dude. That takes the cake.
I was like, so I have that crib. I'm like, man, I gotta like complete this circle. I gotta pass out in the crib at some point.
Yeah,
with
there you go.
But like, I'm like, oh, that's a good one.
That's awesome. I'm sure we can talk about our dads and kind of our favorite memories for the whole night. But we gotta move on.
It's Father's Day. We gotta spend time with our kids.
We do. Well, my kids are sleeping. Your kids are sleeping. Yeah.
Hopefully they are.
So how has your moving on to us right now? We went through childhood with our fathers, teenagehood with our fathers, college, not parenthood. Being a husband, and now, dude, we blink an eye, we're parents, dude. Mm-hmm. How has your life changed since being a father? Like, have you gotten more soft? Have you, do you find yourself acting or like having the same mannerisms as your father? Like, what are your reflections on how your life has changed so far, being a father yourself?
I see initial things as my dad coming through is like, I'll be quick for like anger moments, where I'm like,
yeah.
But the good thing is that I'm aware of it, so I can be like, that it's the rage monster's coming out, and I need to like relax a little bit.
Do your kids know about the rage monster yet?
My kids, like that's why I can put them to bed so easy. They're like, okay, Dad's not messing around. Let's just go to bed. And I do like having that kind of like fear/respect element with this. Like they'll be like, okay, Dad's had enough, and like we'll like I feel like I reflect on how I'm looking to my kids a lot of the times, where it's like, I need to be stern, I need to be fair, and I need to be fun and loving. And so I'm thinking about the things that I miss with my dad. So I'm trying to incorporate things where I'm like, I want them to have a positive image of me, either as, a practicing Catholic, but also a loving father. So like I reflect all the time on, like, at night when they're sleeping, I walk by, I'm like, man, like you were saying, they're growing up fast. I need to like be more aware of, things and be present with them each day. So I get to think about that each night. And then I've been slowly realizing the responsibility to my kids and to my spouse, for Bethany. Like, I'm really noticing, I'm like, wow, this broke down. I need to fix this, and you start realizing things like, I need to, man up and do like a lot of these things. And it's really sinking in, where it's like, you need to just get your act together with a lot of stuff. And with my kids getting bigger, at first, like kind of in the stage you're at, what I've really reflected on as a dad is that in those times, it's more like kids are like pets, like where they're like, you feed them, and you keep control of them, and you make sure they don't get hit by cars, and you clean their, but now it's really different, because they're more than just pets at this point. They're going to school. They're like riding, but they're talking to people, like they're asking questions, and it's like, now it's the responsibility has just grown. So as a dad, it's trying to have this wisdom when sometimes you're just like, I'm not ready to hit this stage yet. I gotta like do some research. I gotta be ready. But it's tough, right? Because the first few years it was like, oh, this is kind of, you get used to like the kids, but now with Kateri getting bigger, I'm like, oh wait, it's not like having pets like I used to. Like these things, I don't know, they're a little bit trickier than I thought. So It's this constant growth, and I'm glad to be somewhat aware of that, because I don't want it to spring on me all of a sudden. So luckily with this kind of progression, by the teenage time, I should be fully fearful. And
I could pick your brain about that, man.
Yeah. What about for you, John?
So it's so funny, like growing up, I remember like my dad being like, pretty much like the you fear me and respect me. This is how this relationship is gonna go, right? And I remember just being like, man, I'm never going to be like my dad. Like, everything my dad does, I'm going to do the complete opposite. And it's so funny, like, even being a teacher, like, I found myself acting like my dad, being like that, you're going to fear me and you're going to respect me, but this is, this is going to, I'm going to be strict, but it's going to be, like, a loving way of being strict. And I feel like it's kind of like that with my kids now, even though, like, yeah, they're pets right now, just trying to help them survive in life. But it's crazy because James is getting even bigger, and he's starting to respond more, and he's like got a mind of his own now, and he's getting in trouble, and he's, it's crazy. It's like, it's awesome. And it's insane that we're getting there, but it's kind of like that day at a time. Right. And so for me, like, my life has changed. I don't know, like I don't know if I can just say like one thing this has changed about me. But the one thing I'll say, Derek, I know this is super cheesy. Like, I never thought that I could love this much, Like, I remember just being like, before James was born, and even like Fatima and I have this conversation a lot. We're like, before James was born, we're like, can our hearts, be big enough for this other human being, right now, just me and her. Can it be big enough for this other human being? And then when James was born, it wasn't even a question. And then I remember when we found out we were pregnant with Lucy, which was crazy because we, that wasn't planned. Although open, right?
Yep,
Catholic.
Always.
We were like, again, can our hearts be big enough to love two human beings? And now, like, we even said today, like, of course, Father's Day, it's a day to have reflections on your parenthood, for your fatherhood. We were saying that, of course our hearts are big enough for this, and we can't even imagine a life without them, without the two.
Yeah.
I remember before Lucy was born, we were like, it's the three of us. We're so used to this, how can there be another child in this relationship, And I can't even imagine doing two kids at once. And now that we're in it and we're in the middle of it, we're in the thick of it, I can't even imagine life without the two of them now, And like, it's awesome to see my kids, or at least James, love on Lucy. Yeah. He kisses her and he hugs her, and when she's crying, he'll try to put her pacifier back in. It's really cute. But it's so cool to just see our hearts grow, with each kid that comes,
Mm-hmm.
Like I never thought that I could love this much, but like I never thought I could love another human being like I love Fatima, like, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not the same kind of love, but it's still,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about?
No, exactly.
Yeah. So
I having a family has been very like enjoyable and like so much fun. And like it is a lot of work, but like like what you're saying with your kids, like now having them, it's awesome. And it does like having 3 kids wasn't as difficult as I thought. And
yeah,
now with the 4th one, I know Jim Gaffigan says like having a 4th kid is like drowning and someone throws you a baby. Like I don't see that yet. And I maybe it will feel like that, but right now everything, like very blessed to have a wife that's helping out to help me be, to be supportive and help me. She's putting me in situations where I can be a successful father,
sure.
and that really attributes to like I enjoy my family, and it is like how too, like it's this teamwork, it's this tag team
Yeah, of
effort.
course, of course.
So yeah, that's I agree. Like to add on with that is just I agree that it's really awesome how much you could like love someone and just feel
Oh, it's amazing.
incomplete with the thought of them not being there anymore. I always
Exactly.
joke like, "Oh, mommy and daddy, when we didn't have you guys, we could go do whatever we want. We can go on a trip."
Exactly.
But to be honest, like it's fun to go places with them. Even going to Wingstop to go eat with them.
Sure.
It was a good time. They bring
Sure.
excitement and joy.
Real quick, let's get through this. Name one struggle and one joy, of being a father, either as a newborn, as a toddler, and now you have children. You have real children.
Real non-pet children.
Yeah.
You know,
Struggle. How about struggle first? Let's both go with struggles.
I've already hit some deep stuff. So for my struggle, it's going to be a lighter struggle.
Yeah.
It's lately like I'll be downstairs and I'll hear Bethany talking. I'm like, oh shoot, she's talking to me. I need to pay attention. But because it seems like a higher intelligence conversation, so I feel like I always need to respond. But she's talking to my daughter Kateri, and it's like it's a weird like now all of a sudden some of the conversations that we would have, like my wife can talk in depth about things with my daughter, either about our faith or movies or books, and I'm like, oh shoot, like I'd hear her talking, and I'm like, oh, am I supposed to be paying attention? But it's this struggle of like just realizing that the time and conversations aren't going to be just Bethany and I at times,
Mm-hmm.
and where it's the kids are going to take a lot of attention, and sometimes that's like a struggle, but it's not that bad of a struggle. Like other struggles are just
Sure, I hear you.
yeah, other things that it's that not wanting to get upset at your kids or wanting like some of this struggle, but that one is like the interesting thing where your time is so separated. What about for you for struggles?
It's interesting because I've been reflecting about this a lot lately. For me, I don't want to get too deep in this, but for me, it's like just making sure that I'm being a good father and being present to my kids. So usually at the end of the day, I'll say to myself, was I present enough for my kids today? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's like just recognizing moments where I'm like, okay, I need to put down whatever I'm doing and just hang out with my kids and play with my kids. Like luckily, and we're so blessed that James is so independent and he likes playing by himself,
Mm-hmm.
to where like I won't even realize he's playing. He's like climbing, something crazy, and I'm like, oh, gotta look, But sometimes I'm just like, okay, like whatever I'm doing is not important as hanging out with my kids. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so for like me, it's just being aware, and I think I'm being better about it now, just because I've been like catching myself and being aware of just like trying to be present to my kids more, and just kind of recognizing moments where I can be present to them more, because we can't be present to our kids all the
Mm-hmm.
time,
Yeah.
but just recognizing moments where we can be. Like if I'm on the computer and I'm just mindlessly surfing the internet, going deep into Reddit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and I kind of turn back, and it takes me out of that moment of like, okay, what is my kid doing? Oh, he's playing. Oh, he's smiling at me. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
computer done. Time to go play. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So that's kind of just been kind of my reflection, my struggle recently. And then I'll just jump into my joy. and it's just a real quick joy. I love seeing my kids smile at me. It's
Yeah.
awesome. It's just like you. There are a lot of moments in parenthood and fatherhood where you're like, man, this really sucks, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And but then when they smile at you and they're happy and you know, you can see the joy there of not only a joy of, doing whatever they're doing, but just being that's my it almost seems like that's my dad right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that's worth it, you know.
Because mine is going to fit right in with that. Like every day, once your kids start getting older too, like they give you like a lot of those good moments too when they're like learning to smile and like all. When they get older, if you're looking for it and you're paying attention, like you said, if you're being present, your kids give you so many great moments. Like if you're paying attention, and one of the things like we were talking about this recently at the dinner table, like they crack me up. Like they do so many funny things and they say the funniest stuff, and it's so great that you're enjoying them smiling because John, it only gets better when they start conversing and they make their own jokes and they're talking to each other, and to see them laughing until they're crying is an awesome amazing thing because you're like there's that out of body experience where you're thinking like, oh my gosh, like if it wasn't for my wife and I, this joy wouldn't be in the world that they're experiencing right now, and this complete happiness, and just like it's really neat to know that you are part of something that happy and so innocent too, and to have that is so great. So every day, like there's joys just everywhere, and it definitely is the laughter that my kids bring to Bethany and I because we laugh at them a lot, and we have the Snapchat app just sometimes
Nice.
to do the
Yeah.
face changing thing.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, we were doing that today, and we were laughing so hard because like to see because they love it. Like I don't personally like it at all, but my kids like love that thing, and they think it's hilarious when they see themselves as a dog. So. And it makes me happy and laughing to hear this stuff. Like my daughter, like sometimes it contorts their face. And Avila, she's like, she grabbed her face. She's like, "What happened to my beautiful face?"
Oh
And
my gosh, it's so funny.
just great stuff. So yeah.
So yeah, so that's great. Thank you for sharing. So Derek, kind of moving on. So when I was in college, I was praying for my vocation, Derek, and I was trying to figure out whether I was called to marriage and or called to the priesthood or whatever vocation God was calling me to. And the one person I kept looking towards, and I think kind of like pointed me in the direction I wanted to go, or I felt God was calling me to, was Saint Joseph. Right?
Mm.
Like we talk about the ultimate father, the foster father of Jesus. A man who was, you know, so holy, so revered in the Catholic Church, not mentioned in the Bible, but said so much through his actions and the way that Mary lived and Jesus lived, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I read this book in college called The Mystery of Joseph. It's by Father Marie Dominique Philippe, OP. I think that's the Dominican order, if I'm not mistaken. Someone fact checked me on that one. Remember, we're bad Catholic dads, so we don't know everything. But the forward is by Groeschel, who is an awesome author if you ever read him. Anyway, Derek, I have some notes. I think Saint Joseph, who is the patron saint of Bad Catholic Dads podcast, by the way, is just a great example of how to be a father. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
An earthly father, especially like because as many fathers know, like even though we can do everything for our kids and we can be there for our kids, there will always be a void, with them that only the Father in heaven can fill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just thought it was awesome to kind of like, if you're struggling being a father, or if you are don't think you're doing a good job, or you're trying to find your way of being a father, I think look to Saint Joseph, right? Like I think you would agree. Like,
Yeah.
What are your memories with Saint Joseph growing up, or with college, or whatever?
Yeah. Just I mean the joke is always that. Well, first of all, OP is the Dominican order.
Oh yeah, I think I said that right.
I think so. Or did you say
Dominican?
Franciscan?
Yeah.
I think you said Franciscan.
No, Dominican. I said Dominican. Yeah,
Did you?
because I looked it up.
Okay.
I was like, let me make sure.
Okay. Saint Joseph. The joke is that he was a really smart man, and you could tell that because he didn't say much.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty funny, and it's just like that respect, man. Like I always, from an early age, was just like he went through so much. Just kind of like
Oh, man,
just
yeah.
trusting God, and just kind of like I'm gonna go with this, and in times like I can see that with my own dad, where it's like, hey, my mom would, for like religious things, like call the shots on things, and my mom was, a very just intense individual. She's very fiery, and my dad, for the most part, would do his best to make everything like work and try to be non-conflicting with stuff. So, he. If I was to attest anything from Saint Joseph, it's like this desire to just kind of like, I'm just gonna go with the flow here, because there's some things that are bigger than me that I can't exactly do, and that's a big thing to do, to just be like, look, I understand the importance of this situation. I'm gonna just kind of shut up, and I think there's a lot of things that we can get from that. This wisdom of like, we don't always need to talk. We don't always need to do this. We can lead by example and our trust in God. And I see a lot of that in St. Joseph.
Oh, 100%. I totally agree with you. So check out this book. It's called The Mystery of Joy. Have you read this book before, Derek?
No, I haven't.
So it's awesome. The cover is amazing. I love the cover. It's a fantastic book. It kind of goes through who St. Joseph is, and this guy gives basically his reflections on, the mystery of St. Joseph, because St. Joseph is pretty much a big mystery, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He doesn't say any word in the Bible, and so it's through tradition and divine providence, I guess, I don't know, just kind of like figuring out who he is, and kind of what his thoughts were going through his life, right? And so I pulled out some excerpts from the book, and I think my goal with this is just to be like, how can we look up to and imitate St. Joseph in our everyday marriage and in our everyday fatherhood, right? And so the first thing, Derek, and I kind of want this to be a response too. So if something comes to you, Derek, or if you want to just expand or just kind of respond to what I'm going to be reading,
okay,
totally feel free, right? All right, so again, this is how can we look up to and imitate St. Joseph in our everyday marriage and fatherhood. I think the one thing is to look at is just to kind of look at his life and read about his life in the Bible, because he is mentioned in the Bible, right? And the one thing, or one of the excerpts I pulled was allowing God to work in our families, our wives, our children, and even when that plan sometimes doesn't include us. So Philippe writes, we could say that in his faith, he had a presentiment of what had taken place between Mary and her God, a presentiment that God had accomplished something in Mary without asking for his permission, without cooperating with him. This is sometimes hard for a man to accept. It is harder. He says it is hard for women too, but perhaps even harder for a man. It is very trying, because when we love someone, we only have one desire: to work together with him or her, that a person's work be ours also. And I think that's pertinent to our marriage, right, and to our families, because I think sometimes we forget that even though we're trying to lead our family to heaven, we're trying to lead our spouse to heaven, our spouse is also trying to lead us too. You know what I mean? That's their job, and that's why they married us. And so I think that my wife having her own prayer time, I have to see what she thinks, and we have to come together and say, hey, what's the best course to get to heaven together, because I'm not dragging you to heaven and you're not dragging me to heaven. We're walking hand in hand, you know what I mean? So yeah,
no, that's a really good excerpt on it. And it was kind of like what I was just talking about too, where it's like sometimes we just need to shut up and know that there's bigger things going on that we don't have control of, and we have to just let it happen. Sure. And it's tough, man. Like that situation, like to respond to God that way, because there's a lot of times in our life where we're gonna get these things like, man, I reject everything that either God is showing me or just this is dumb, and like to turn away. And he actually like embraced and went head forward with it. Kudos.
Definitely. All right. The second one is knowing God's will, what God's will is for us and our family. I think it goes along with the kind of the first one. He says, being just men. Like not just men, but just as in good men, right? Knowing there is something that is much more important for him, namely knowing what God's will is for ourselves, but for Mary. I think it goes along with what you were saying, is just knowing that there's something bigger than us, right, at work, and knowing what that is, right? I think as men, we can do a better job of praying and leading our family to prayer. And I think we can't know God's will unless we have that prayer, in our lives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then submitting to the will of the Father. Philippe says, even though he knew that he would not have any children since they were not to have conjugal relations, could they not work together on something greater, cooperate on some work of religious nature, for example? I want to talk about kind of how when Mary was found with child, and how hard that must have been for Joseph. Like, even though he was like a just man, could you imagine that, Derek?
No.
Here you are getting ready to be betrothed. Or you already kind of betrothed to this woman, and finding out she is pregnant.
Yeah.
Talk about submitting to the will of the Father, right?
Well, exactly. And then I just like always think too about like what did his family say? Like his family, and I know we're taught by tradition that he was older, and I'm wondering if his like if people were on board with what was happening too. Because
sure.
That had to have been so difficult, and to just trust that that's the case, because he went the right course about he was going to divorce her quietly, like, well, this isn't for me, and then he was told otherwise. It takes some good introspection and trying to and I think at that point, when you know that God is talking through you through an angel, I think it's real. It's not just like, did I just have some bad pizza? Is that
sure?
And
sure.
I think he knew at that point. It had to been clear enough where he's like, nope, this is it, man. Because I can't. If I had a dream, like if I was dating someone or I was betrothed and they were like pregnant, and then I had a dream, I would not believe it at all. But so I think there was definitely he felt a very high presence at work there.
Well, yeah, and I think that it all goes back to him being such a just man and him having prayer rooted such in his heart. You know what I mean? It's not, it's only through that prayer and knowing God's will for him even before he found out about that.
Yeah.
It's just being like, okay, like when that dream when the angel came to him and revealed to him in a dream that, hey, Mary's, she's special. It's just being like, all right, you know what I mean? I'm with it,
And I think God, when he's choosing things for people, he also knows the people that are involved with it. And I would think in some way Joseph's heart was prepared for this coming up.
Definitely.
And whether it be like, throughout his life, or he made a birthday wish, like, I really hope to be like the foster father of like God. Like, if he had that birthday wish, that'd be awesome. We might find that out later. But
I wouldn't put it past it, man.
That would be so funny, blowing out those birthday candles. I don't know how many people would have wished for that. But I think, God knew, like, he didn't take it. He didn't give it to maybe like the most faithless man. Like he gave it to a holy person, and they were able.
I love Saint Joseph, the just man. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, 1, 2, 3. Fourthly, right? 1, 2, 3. Fourthly, always remember that our marriage in itself is a prayer, a divine sacrament. Philippe says this is always how we can discern whether a friendship is truly divine. If God has preceded our human heart. If God asks us to love someone first in a divine way, in charity, and then later asks us to love him or her with our human heart and our sensibility, then it is divine love which assumes human love, because God always assumes everything, right? Mary and Joseph had this love, right? For Mary and Joseph, it was both, and is ultimately for this reason we can say that there was between them the greatest friendship that had ever existed between two creatures. And I kind of brought this up because, one, just to remember that our marriage is a prayer in itself. It's right. It's a sacrament. But for those who are discerning marriage or, wanting to be called to marriage, and you find someone who could potentially be your, spouse, the best thing to do is let your friendship grow through the divine way, and then ask God if he's calling to love that person with your human heart, right? Like, I remember my wife, Fatima, she's gonna give me crap if I keep saying my wife. I remember, like, dude, I'm pretty sure the same way with you, like, especially with you. No, I know your story, especially with you. Like, when I was with Fatima and we decided to cultivate our friendship first before we wanted to be anything more than that. You know what I mean? And I remember we wanted to, like, pray with each other as friends and go on retreats together as friends. And just kind of have that divine friendship at first, and for you, I'm sure it's the exact same way, right? You guys met through praise and worship. I mean, come on now, and then later on, God revealing to us, calling us to love each other with our human heart and our sensibility. You know what I mean?
And you had asked earlier about like any like kind of experience with Saint Joseph or like how it was important to you. When we were at Christendom, before we were engaged, we did a novena to Saint Joseph.
Same here, dude. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah.
So that was a big. I mean, that was a big. Kind of just to pray through that. So that novena that Bethany and I did was really important for the relationship because again, it was putting that aspect on it. Even though at the time when you're younger, sometimes you don't really realize all the words, like what they really mean. Going through and doing the action sometimes and just trying to focus as much as your like immature brain can at the time, it does mean a lot. And I still think of that from time to time about when we did that novena together.
Yeah, definitely. Like I remember, I'm with you there. That's cool. And lastly, always offering our fatherhood to God in the way that Saint Joseph offered his fatherhood to God, right? Philippe says, "We are a little too hasty when we speak of Joseph simply as foster father. We can see why people call him that, but we need to be careful because there is a risk of diminishing Joseph's fatherhood to Jesus, or of Jesus. His fatherhood is a divinely perfect fatherhood wherein the child Jesus in all his greatness, nobility, and divinity is relative to Joseph. It is a fatherhood that is substantial through grace. It is a fatherhood that requires the sacrifice of not being the human source of life, and it is a fatherhood that requires accepting this poverty in his spousal relationship to Mary." I bring that up because I think we need to just offer our fatherhood up to God, every single day. I don't think there should be a day where we don't offer it up,
Yeah.
Because, if we look at Joseph, right, like, yeah, we kind of, I don't want to say diminish, but like, we just call, we say, he's a foster father, but Jesus, I like to say he learned how to pray from his parents. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He learned how to be, good Jewish boy from his parents. He learned how to do carpentry from Joseph. How to fit in the world. Through his dad. It's like for Joseph and Jesus, they did carpentry together. For Derek and his father, they did tie to tie together. You know what I mean? And just offering not only our fatherhood, but those moments that will come, what I mean? Whether they'll be good or bad.
Yeah, and I apologize earlier because I said the F word. I called him the foster father earlier. So, and it's good to hear these readings.
Oh, dude, I'm with you there.
Yeah, well, because it's good to hear these things because then, it's always good to be reminded of the respect and care that you have to do for things. Even though you think that he's not present by not speaking, it doesn't mean he's not there physically and spiritually.
100%,
so, yeah.
All right, so kind of just reviewing, how can we look up and imitate St. Joseph in our everyday marriage, our everyday fatherhood? By allowing God to work in our families, our wives, our children, and even when that plan sometimes doesn't include us. Knowing God's will for our family, our wives, our fatherhood, and submitting to that will through prayer and offering our fatherhood to God, right? Last couple thoughts I had, getting to confession regularly. I think I need to take that advice, Derek, 100%. Getting to confession regularly. I think if we're going to be good men, good fathers, good husbands, we need to get to confession. And with confession, we need to go to Mass regularly. I think teaching our kids, educating our kids, loving our kids, playing with our kids, being present with our kids. Do you have any other, how can we, imitate and be better fathers to our kids?
I want to take that a step further because with Mass, I think it's really important that our kids see us involved at Mass just for a number of reasons. So when there's a song being sung, try to sing it. Your kids are watching. Or when the collection basket's going around, what we did today too, even if you have a few cents or whatever, give, depending on what giving you're doing or however you're doing, whether through your parish or whatever you're doing, give your kids a couple coins and when that basket goes around, let them do it because you are in everything you're educating. But to keep Mass very important, genuflect on the way out of your pew. Make sure you do that. Just don't walk through because like to see my kids genuflect. It's the cutest thing in the world when you see children doing it.
Oh yeah, dude.
Oh man, it's awesome. But
so cute.
That's what I would say with the mass. Is like not only going there. That's really good to go to mass, but take it that step further because they're going to see you through your actions, and so that's the one that I would just really focus on is just try to be present at mass for God and do it because your kids are watching you because they're not going to be able to understand why they're there. Like they'll see the cross up there and they know what you've told them, but they're going to be like, my dad's doing this, so I need to do that. And I think that's really important.
Sure. 100%. I think it's crazy how much kids pick up what we put down, it's just, I think kids learn through imitation first, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, now I'm finding my kids, like James is starting to imitate some things that I'm doing. And I'm sure for you, like, definitely.
Yeah.
So great insight, Derek. All right. So last but not least, before we go, a little bit, not as short as an episode, but shorter than we've normally gone.
Mm-hmm.
What are our wishes and goals for this year of being a dad?
I think mine is kind of like what you mentioned. I really want to be present. But what I've been doing lately, and this is a huge, this is a pro tip for all you dads out there right now.
All right, let's hear it. I'm ready.
To help with your memory stuff of what's going on your phone, it doesn't matter what it is. Keep a list of like things my kids say. You can call it crap my kids say, whatever you say, but create your list of quotes that your kids say, because right now, John, you have a great head start on this because James hasn't started talking funny nonsense stuff. But when he does, man, keep a list of things they say. Keep it on your phone, always update it. Do it on Google Drive. I don't care how you do it. You're going to look back and be so happy you did that. Make sure you write like the quote as close as you can. It's great like thing with your spouse. Like, what did she say when she said that? What can you help me out with the wording? And then she'll help you. You write it down and put who said it. And that's what I'm going to be really focusing on this year. I've started it last year, but I want to really commit to it this year.
Nice.
What about for you?
That's awesome. Yeah, being more present, of course. I think the one thing, my goal, we're moving into a house, Derek, so that's going to be great. My goal is to, I guess, it goes along with yours a little bit, but more of like video side. I want to have more, not phone videos of my kids, like homemade videos, but not through my phone. Like I'm trying to get off my phone more in terms of when I'm with my kids.
Yeah, I hear you.
Just because I don't want them to pick that up as they get older. Right now, they can care less.
Yeah, they don't.
And I'm glad my son doesn't really care about my phone. Like I see some kids like on their phones or like they'll grab their parents' phones, but my son doesn't really like my phone. Probably because it's a death trap, because it's so cracked and broken. So if you grab
slit his wrists,
exactly.
You gotta keep him alive.
But yeah, no, we bought this camera, and I want to just take more home videos because I think when I was growing up, I had all these cool home videos on cassettes and VHSs.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what's that, you oldie.
My mom too. She was awesome at doing that.
And I wish I had more of that. And I think I want to give that, because if we look at it, like our videos on like social media or just on our phones aren't that long.
Yeah.
And just to have like really cool videos of them.
And that's the thing. You're absolutely right, John, because when we're doing it on social media or posting, there's a narrative that the producer, the parent is putting out to show people.
Sure.
To have intimate moments where your kids are just talking or reading boring stuff, when you look back like, man, I'm so glad I recorded them climbing up the couch and jumping off, and not to post it or doing slow motion videos of them jumping on their bed and you throwing stuffed animals to them. That kind of stuff, like just to have it, not to share it with other people, but for yourself.
Sure.
When you look back,
100%.
when you're on your fifth kid and you're like, man, I want to look back when my daughter was like 2 or the age that this one child's coming. It's amazing, and that is the greatest. And we have the technology nowadays where we have no excuses. Know? So I agree to just do it for you and your family. I think it's a beautiful thing because I know like I've been so thankful to stumble upon some of those. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at how cute they were.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
Awesome.
It's crazy that they're getting older now too, and like it's cool to see them when they were really little. You know what I mean? And it's just really cool. So. All right, man. With that, I'm going to go ahead and proclaim this hashtag Year of Bad Catholic Dads, Derek.
Nice. I like it.
So, all right, Derek, any last kind of things you want to talk about Father's Day or fatherhood or anything
No.
like that?
I just, shout out to all the dads out there that are unsung heroes and maybe, just haven't been told that you are loved by your family. Just keep working at it. And
Sure.
I think a shout out to one of our people that have been, I don't know, tweeting us out, Joey McDermott, right?
Oh yeah, Joey, my dude. What's up, man?
I like that guy, man. He's a funny guy.
Cool.
I like
he's
him.
Cool. Yeah.
What about for you, John?
Shout outs just to all the fathers out there. Just like you said, kind of know that you're appreciated. And I know a lot of the dads, we do like the dirty work, we get in there and we pluck the weeds and we do a lot of things, and just know that like I never got to tell my dad how much I appreciated him doing those kind of things growing up, but just know that all that goes with all the appreciation in the world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Any other shout outs, Derek? Do you have any other shout outs? I don't have any other shout outs, I don't think.
No. I think I'm good.
Leave us a review, please. I checked on Bad Catholic Dads on iTunes. No new reviews yet. Last review we had was April 27th, 2017. So it's been a couple months now. So if you're listening to this, and I know you are, go ahead and go to the iTunes podcast app, search up Bad Catholic Dads, hit the reviews tab, leave us a review there. Or if you're on the internet, type in go to your iTunes or go to the iTunes store on the browser, and you can look up Bad Catholic Dads podcast, and you can leave us a review through your browser. So please leave us reviews. We really need it, and I'm excited. We have a lot of, Derek and I are talking in the background. We have a lot of cool stuff coming for you guys, so definitely keep tuned to that. You can find us on iOS, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Those are the podcast apps we're on right now. Nothing yet, but if you feel like you want to see us on Stitcher or any of these other podcast apps, let us know. Shoot us a comment. We're on YouTube as well. We post the podcast there. Derek and I are looking to do more video stuff in the future, so definitely tune into that. You can find us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Follow us. That's where kind of all our information and all our posts and all our up-to-date what's happening with us goes on our social media, so check us out there. And lastly, check us out on patreon.com/badcatholicdads. Guys, if you want to figure out who we are or know anything about us, I have our whole background information on there, and I have a bunch of posts, kind of like our reflections, but also kind of what we're doing. I have a vlog out right now for building. My wife and I are building a house, so check out that vlog. And support us on Patreon, because I know, it's awkward sometimes asking for money, but just know that every dollar that goes into Bad Catholic Dads comes, right back in a circle. Equipment dying, that's definitely the expense
Hashtag
there. So
save John's audio.
Hashtag save Bad Catholic Dad's audio. It's almost like hashtag only you can, prevent forest fires.
Yeah.
Only you can prevent mixers breaking on the Bad Catholic Dad's podcast.
Electric
there
fires.
You go. All right, and with that, thank you for listening. That has been episode 14 of the Bad Catholic Dads podcast. Derek, until next week, it has been our pleasure to serve you. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. Bye, guys.
Later.